Mr. Chairman, I just want to let you know that I need to step out at about 5 p.m. and come back at about 5:45. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, is it just me or can you guys hear? Can you hear what he's saying? You can hear what he's saying. I can't hear anything. Can't hear. Okay.
I can hear you, Lisa. Can you hear me?
Oh. Sorry, you can hear me. I can't hear the committee room, that's all. Can you hear the committee room?
Not yet.
I was just looking at his
Okay.
hand sign.
Oh, okay. I thought he was.
Testing, testing. Can you hear us?
Now we can hear you. I thought Bruce was talking. Okay.
That we're not going yet, are we?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, yeah. That reminds me of the joke about the two old brothers who had to share a motel room, traveling, and one of them snored, but the other was deaf. No, one of them snored, but the other was deaf. Yeah. So, anyway, in the middle of the night, the one brother is waking the other guy up, saying, "You're snoring." And the other brother says, "You can't hear me, you're deaf." He said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to turn down my hearing aid."
Keep your, okay, he's off.
All set. Good afternoon. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public hearings. My name is Bruce Mullock. Panel members this afternoon are Lisa Valentini, Zahir Bahat, Aaron Cheng, and Peter Reed. This will be a virtual public hearing. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx and moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by computer, phone, or tablet app. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When his or her item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Registered participants will be participating by audio only. And we ask that you also mute your devices until you are called upon to speak. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to property, permission to extend or to alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property in order to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and TLAB will be sending notifications and update emails by email only. You may not agree with the decision of the committee. Decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or, in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decisions. Procedure. I will call each item in the order that it is listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if so requested by the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the agent or the applicant, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment to you when you are reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and may be asked to make a presentation. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to the proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised in order to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support of or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after the speaker has finished their presentation. When all the speakers are finished, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut, but only to those issues that were raised by the speakers. And that will mark the end of discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Are there any declarations of interest by panel? Yes, there is one. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Valentini.
Hi, thank you. Mr. Chair, item number 36, 00 Queens Quay. In the past, I've been acquainted with somebody who has written in on behalf of one of the parties or one of the parties involved in the application, so I'm just going to not participate in that matter.
Thank you very much. Very good. How about staff? Any declarations of interest? No. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any requests for deferral?
None that I can see from the applicants.
Thank you. And once again, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any files to be closed?
None for this afternoon.
Thank you. So we begin this afternoon, this segment with agenda item number 21, 244 Lumsden Avenue. And on 244 Lumsden, we have the materials before us submitted by the applicant. We have revised plans submitted 30 November, a revised zoning notice from 2 December. There is a previous Committee of Adjustment decision, 2017, and a cover letter from the agent. We also have staff reports from Community Planning and Urban Forestry. On this particular application, there is correspondence both in support of and opposed to the application. There are 12 letters in support, signed by the owners and occupants of addresses on Lumsden, Cedarvale, received December the 6th, and a further group from Lumsden, King Edward Avenue, and Cedarvale received on December 7, totaling 12 in all. There's correspondence in opposition from 246 Lumsden, 226 King Edward, 226 King Edward Avenue from another party, George Georgiev, the first one was from Amelia Georgiev, and from 242 Lumsden. And there is a 10-signature petition in opposition, signed by the owners of addresses on King Edward, Lumsden. That was received on December the 1st. So we'll ask the applicant to join us by stating your name, please.
Jonathan Miskowski, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, John. John, you have 5 minutes to present the highlights of your application to the panel. Please go ahead.
Perfect. Just quickly to formally make those changes that we did make from the public notice. We will be revising variance request number 4 to reduce the height from the previous 9.5 meters to 9.2 meters. In addition, variance number 5 will be reduced from 9.25 meters to 8.25 meters. Lastly, variance number 6 will be reduced from 9.5 meters to 9.2 meters.
Thank you for that.
So to review the proposal, if we could bring up the site plan, please. The proposal before you today is for a 3-story dwelling. Through the revision process, it has been altered from a true flat roof dwelling to the proposal that is before you today, which has a mansard roof at the side, a slight slope. It's important to note that 3-story dwellings are permitted here. This is not an area that does not permit a 3-story dwelling. In addition, the side yard setback requests that are before you today are improvements on both sides from what is there today, again, with the understanding that we are building a larger house. In terms of the pattern of side yard setbacks that currently exist from the both adjacent house to the east, as well as the adjacent house to the west, the adjacent house to the west has a side yard setback of 0.9 meters. We are proposing a 0.9 meter setback to the dwelling to the west. The existing dwelling to the east has an existing side yard setback of 0.6 meters. We are proposing 0.6 meters. That is the variance request that is before you today. So in terms of mimicking patterns of open space and lot structure, I would say that we are in keeping with that from the proposal that is before you today. Now, sticking with the site plan on the page today, if we notice the dwelling in the center, the request for coverage, as well as the request for FSI, only proposes to have the rear main wall go beyond the adjacent dwelling to the east. If we look, the adjacent dwelling to the east is largely pushed forward towards Lumsden. And in this case, the desirability of having a car park in front as well as an integral garage push the dwelling further behind the existing dwelling at 246. That being said, the proposed house at 244 does not extend beyond the rear wall of the adjacent property at 244. As we know, on shallow, narrow lots as such, the desirability to build up is there. This house offers 2 bedrooms on the 2nd floor and 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor. By no means is this a large, massive dwelling. The proposal for height requests an increase of 0.7 meters in a neighborhood that has a very large array of architectural styles and build forms. We are not introducing a structure adjacent to a bungalow that will overshadow it. The adjacent dwellings to the west are newer builds. I was actually involved in them about 10 years ago when they were under Committee of Adjustment consent applications, and they requested similar variances to the ones that are before you today. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Let's first go to the registered speakers and ask
Anelia Georgiev?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. For some reason, after the break, the committee room is very, very faint. I don't know, like my phone is turned all the way up, but when you speak, it's like super, super faint.
Okay, thanks for that. That's important we know. Can you hear me now? How was that?
Yes, yes. Now you're back to pre-break volume.
Pardon me, maybe I was too far from the mic. Okay.
Well, it could be, yeah, like I said, I could kind of make out what you were saying, but it was just very, very faint.
Thanks very much for letting us know. Okay.
Oh, no problem.
You have 5 minutes to address your concerns to the committee. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start off by just, obviously, I went through the variances and all of them are being exceeded, so I'll touch on a bit more detail, but I wanted to point out a couple of things which are quite disturbing about the whole case. We actually got our door knocked on Sunday around noon, and it was the owner of this new property. And it's the very first time we've ever met them. It was him and his spouse, and they came to ask whether we support or we oppose the proposed building. So the conversation did not go over very well. My husband and I indicated that we are absolutely opposed to it, and we've sent our concerns to the city as to why we're opposed to it. Unfortunately, he was very arrogant, completely dismissive of all of our concerns. A number of things that were said, through doing a little bit of research online, or flat out lies.
Okay, and
He
I
said
mean, Anelia,
he
let's
lived in the
let's not spend
and
too
right
much.
at the moment.
Let's not spend
And
too
it
much
will
time on
be-
that, please. On personalities, and let's not spend any time on personalities here. I'd like to. What the panel wants to hear from you is really the concerns you have about the negative or adverse impacts that the variances create for you and your husband enjoying your property.
Okay, so to kind of keep it brief, the building will be incredibly large compared to what's there right now. Right now, there's a bungalow on site with a large yard behind it. The lot covers the rear part of our house where our bedrooms are, as well as part of our yard. All of their windows, so third floor windows, second floor windows, plus a second floor balcony, and huge massive patio doors on the first floor, will all directly look into our house. And the deck and the walkout that they're going to have is literally like 3-4 meters from our fence. So the height of the building that they're gonna put up, or they want to put up, will eliminate all of the daylight that we get on our south side, which is our living room window, our kitchen window. It'll also partially block light into the bedrooms. We have bedrooms in the basement that all face south, so those will lose all light completely. Privacy in our yard will be completely eliminated, because this house will literally overhang our house and our yard. So they'll have a direct view into our house and into the yard as well. In terms of, like I said, in terms of, the variances, I read through them. The lot is not very large. The house will cover almost half of the entire lot. The floor space index is 25% more than what is allowed. The side yard setbacks are exceeded. Yes, it's keeping with what the current one is, but there's a, big difference between the current bungalow and a, 10-meter tall structure. In terms of, building height, like I said, this will sort of overshadow absolutely everything around it because there are no houses that are that size anywhere in the vicinity. I went and I spoke with all of our neighbors on all sides that are directly impacted, and no one was in support, hence our petition. Because everybody feels that it is too large, privacy will be impacted, there will be obviously, way too close to neighboring properties, possible, foundation compromise, flooding. Like, for example, we thought, all the snow that they'll accumulate in the yard, there's nowhere for it to go. So if it gets pushed up against their fence, we could very well get flooded. I noticed after I got the petition signed with everybody opposing it, the owner of the property went around to get letters of support, which were filed with the city. He went to houses that are as much as 300 meters away, which makes absolutely no sense. Like, somebody that lives 300 meters away from the property, they don't even know where this is located or would not be impacted in any way.
I must ask you now.
I kinda went through the list,
I must ask you
and
now.
there's maybe-
Excuse me. I must ask you now for your final comment, please.
Yeah, so my final comment, essentially, like I said, loss of light, loss of space, absolute loss of privacy, and like I said, the situation was handled in a very underhanded way. In terms of future occupancy, that was lied about, plus a number of other things.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, any questions here for this this speaker? Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. I'm just looking at a Google a view of the said property, and your property, which I believe is 226 King Edward.
That's right, yeah.
So from what I can see, and correct me if I'm wrong, 240 and 242 Lumsden are new builds that look like they're either 2 or 3 stories high that overlook your property. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. They were both built roughly about 6 years ago.
Okay.
We were not in agreement with that build either. However, I was really, really ill at that time, and we simply didn't have the ability to submit anything to the city and oppose all of those. But the presence of both of them being constructed, they are 2 stories, so this new one will be bigger for sure. Both properties have unfortunately put up huge decks in their backyards that extend all the way to our fence. So like 2/3 of our yard is unusable because it literally, when people are outside, they're like sitting in our yard. So we've, yeah,
That's
so
fine. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay. If there are no further questions, we shall proceed to the next speaker.
Renita?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Renata Shishkova, and I'm the
Sorry, Renita. Is there a way you can speak louder or move closer to the microphone?
Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Oh, sorry about this.
Please state your name.
Renata Shishkova, and I'm the owner of the house at 246 Lumsden, which is the east side of the proposed variance. And I'll try to be brief because I have filed with the city a very detailed letter. I'm very strongly opposed to this new proposal. To me, it's not even minor, because instead
Renata, you're gonna have to speak up again, please. Renata, please speak up again because you've faded since you began.
Is it better now again?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Sorry about this. So anyways, I was saying that the proposed variances basically do not comply with the bylaws. Lot coverage, floor space, site, maximum height of the front and rear walls, everything has been substantially increased. However, the side setback towards my house doesn't even meet the minimum requirement. Now, apparently the owner and the architect have received a zoning notice and they did make some changes which I would call cosmetic changes, because taking off 30 centimeters from a height of 10 meters, that doesn't make much difference. And almost the same with the height of the side and rear, the front and back and rear walls. My most major concerns are, first of all, a building like this next to my side will completely block all sunlight and will absolutely diminish the daylight that my house is getting. I have windows from the main floor that are facing west, and that's how the house gets most of its light.
You've gone faint again. Please speak up.
Yes, the new house will also be extended further back in the yard, which will eliminate the light that my second floor bedroom gets, and will completely destroy my backyard because it won't get any sunshine, and it will even be difficult to see the sky from any of my windows. Now, you can imagine what this can cause to senior people, especially. This will completely destroy our lifestyle. It will very negatively affect and damage our health, both physical, emotional. Further to this, I have very serious concerns about the foundations of my house. Now, this is a house which has been upgraded, it's well kept and maintained, but it's still 100 years old. And digging up for such a big building, half a meter away, that poses very serious threat to the foundations of my house. The distance between the two houses will be so small that it would pose a fire hazard. Now, true enough, the existing bungalow is about the same distance, but it is so small that it actually is more manageable. Then further to this,
Okay, Renata. Renata, I must ask you now to make your final comments, please.
my final comment is that the house is unreasonably big for this neighborhood. It is very badly shutting off the light to my house, which is a terrible health damage. And also, as another point, I would like to point that all the letters of support, except for one, are not from the immediate neighbors. They're far away from the house, and people actually don't care that much what will happen 300 meters.
Thank you very much for that. Panel members, questions for the speaker? No. Okay then. Thank you very much. Renata, we'll go back now to the applicant, who will have an opportunity to respond to what you and Mr. Georgiev have said in the form of rebuttal. Let's go back to the applicant now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to really speak to what the owner may or may not have done, but I would just make one quick comment that the adjacent neighbor to the west does not have an objection to this. So in terms of speaking about immediate neighbors, the immediate neighbor to the west does not have an objection to this. To deal with
Does not have an objection, pardon me, objection to what, to the application?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So
Go ahead.
Yes, so if we could just put on the site plan, please, again, to speak to the concerns of Mrs. Georgiev to the rear, I want to make just a couple quick clarifications. The proposal is not for a 10-meter building. The original proposal was for 9.5 meters. We have since revised that to 9.2 meters. I know both people spoke of that. It may have just been a small error, but I did just want to make sure we're on the same page with the overall height being 9.2 meters, not 10 meters. Now, can we just zoom in on the rear yard, please? Between the, yep, please. So I just want to go over a couple of things there. The actual distance from the edge of the deck, of the proposed deck, to Mrs. Georgia's property is 7.64 meters, or 25 feet essentially. From the rear, the proposed rear wall of the dwelling, that dimension is 9.48 meters to the property line, or 31 feet. So in terms of overlook, this is a flanking yard, which is in the rear yard of this property. The development of this house, regardless of what were or were not to be approved, there will be windows on those floors that have overlook, and that's just a common situation that happens within the city itself. One other thing, the coverage requested is actually 39.98, not 50%. And I want to just talk about the side yard setback. The side yard setback that is proposed is the identical side yard setback of Miss Georgia, and is actually an improvement, again, from the 0.19 meters of what exists today. And again, as I acknowledged before, it is a larger structure that is being proposed there today. And again, in terms of Mrs. Renata adjacent to the east, the proposed building length is 15.37 meters. In this neighborhood, it's a very staggered front yard situation of what happens within the neighborhood and the lot structure itself. And as you can see, we're blown up here. The proposed dwelling is actually built behind the adjacent existing dwelling at 242. Lastly, I just wanted to maybe review the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and how impact is contemplated and what's considered acceptable. If we take the zoning bylaw of what's permitted and what's not permitted, a permitted zoning bylaw portion, a permitted zoning number or zoning standard is a number that would be considered an acceptable impact. So if we look at what is being requested adjacent to Ms. Renata to the east, we're requesting a 0.3 meter reduction, which again, the increase from 0.19, which that 0.3 meters, in addition to the increase in height, in my opinion, would not create any additional impact than the house being built 0.7 meters lower, with again, a true flat roof that could be permitted here. This is not a zone where the flat roof has to go to 7.2 meters. A true flat roof could be at 8.5 meters and would be 1 foot difference. In my opinion, that impact is essentially exactly the same as what would be there today, in which the zoning bylaw contemplates as being an acceptable impact as what it would be built as of right. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. We'll see if there are any, panel members. Let's have Mr. Byatt first, and then Ms. Valentini to follow.
Just a quick question. Do you have a rough idea of what the height of your proposed structure would be compared to your immediate neighbor? I believe it's to the west, the new build.
If you bear with me, we're now asking surveyors to put roof heights for this exact reason. No, I have a door sill. If you bear with me for 1 second, I can find the plans because I did the consent whenever that did occur. So I can find it here for you right now. The height of those are meters.
That's 8 meters compared to your 9.2.
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Valentini.
I couldn't unmute myself. So did I hear you say, Mr. Bankowski, that you can have a building that's 8.5 meters high, that's flat roofed? There's not like a wall height?
Correct. This has the most permissible zoning designation.
All I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Thank you.
If there are no further questions from the applicant, then we'll,
Actually, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Could we just have Jonathan confirm the revision to variance number 5? Because I believe he had stated that it would be 8.25 meters.
yeah.
Whereas the zoning notice, the revised zoning notice indicates 8.95 meters. So I just want to have Jonathan.
That was I misspoke there.
Okay.
That is 895. And also through you, Mr. Chair, Mrs. Van Tilly, I actually was incorrect. It is not permitted at the 8.5, the flat roof. It would be subject to, yes, I misspoke there. My apologies. I just confirmed and I double checked and I was incorrect there.
All heights do, the front of rear wall heights do apply in this zone.
Yes, but yeah, and it's very, yes, correct. I misspoke there.
Okay then. If there are no further questions at this stage, then we'll move the discussion into committee and we can discuss or even go to a motion. If anyone wants to make a comment, they are invited to do so. I have a question for you, and this relates to the height issue. Tell me, tell me your interior ceiling heights, please.
Funny you asked that, Mr. Chair. I just reviewed those. If you want to bring them up on the screen, they are as follows. The first floor. Do you want me to wait for the screen or just go?
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
So the ceiling heights are. Bear with me now. My screen is frozen here. Yes, that's better. I'm still spinning here. So again, these numbers, dot to dot, do not take into account the 1 foot structure that would be required. So here we have the first floor would be 10 foot minus 1 foot, which would be 9 feet. Second floor again, 10 foot minus 1 foot, which would be 9 feet. The third floor would be 8'4" clear. So 9'9", 8'4".
Thanks. That answers my question, and thank you for that. Okay. Any other questions, panel? Is anyone ready to move to a motion? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks. Excuse me. I think these kind of applications are always difficult in neighborhoods where it's the kind of first one to go up to 3 stories. But I think it is a progression, and these things happen over generations. Looking at the variances themselves, I think they're not that extreme. Like they're relatively small, and you know, we're talking about 1 meter here and there, and then the setbacks are a lot less than that. So I don't think this is extreme. I don't think this is pushing it too far. I think it's a supportable application. So if my colleagues don't have anything else to add, I'll go ahead and move a motion to approve the amended application, subject to urban forestry 1 and 2, and subject to community planning comments from December 1st.
Thank you very much. That motion is seconded by Mr. Byatt. So it is moved and seconded. to approve the amended application, subject to forestry. Those in favor, please show of hands. And that motion does carry with unanimous vote, and the application is so approved. Panel moves on to number 22. '72 Lewis Street. And on 72 Lewis, applicant materials are before us, covering letter from the agent, presentation materials from the agent consisting of a map, proposed elevation drawings, 30 November, email correspondence from TRCA, and staff reports from Urban Forestry and Community Planning. We have two pieces of correspondence in support from either side, 70 Lewis and 74 Lewis. Very good. And we'll ask the agent to join us now, please, by stating your name.
Hello, Michael Lafreniere, agent for this application.
Very good. Hello.
Hello.
Panel members, some opportunity if you wish for a presentation or questions. Anything required? No? All right then, let's move then to a motion if someone is ready. Mr. Bike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a relatively straightforward application. There's only, I believe, a forestry number 2 condition and planning condition as well. I'm quite happy to move a motion to support this application with the 2 conditions, forestry and planning in place.
Thank you very much. Is there a second to that? Ms. Valentini seconds. Moved and seconded to approve. Subject to forestry and planning. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried.
Thank you.
Unanimous vote. Application is approved. We move on to number 23, 21 Epsom. And on 21 Epsom, the committee has before it applicant materials, planning rationale from the agent, December 1, staff report from Urban Forestry. We have a variety of correspondence. There are 12 form letters in support from addresses on Epsom, received 25 November. There is interest expressed in a letter from 25 Epsom. There is opposition expressed in letters from 160 Westlake, 7 Epsom, 13 Doncaster, 20 Doncaster. 2 photographs that are in opposition are submitted from 20 Doncaster. And there are 9 form letters in opposition from addresses on Westlake and Epsom, received December 1. So we shall ask the applicant to join us, please.
Hi, this is Parisa. I'm really on the applicant on this application. I'm at the 50 Woodville Avenue.
Hey, Parisa, do you mind just speaking a little louder? Where you can hear you, you're clear. It's just a little faint.
Oh, okay. Is that better?
Much better.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. So, do you want me to go ahead and explain the application?
Just a moment, yes. I think we're going to want that. And I'm just going to confirm with the moderator. We have one up. Okay. Yes, you'll have 5 minutes to explain the
Sure.
the application and the reasons. Yeah.
Yes, the reason that we are before the committee of adjustment is because the mistake has been happened during the construction of the roof while we had the building permit in place, and the roofer made a mistake because it's a multi-level drawings. If we would be able to have the section which is A11. If we move forward to have the section A11 on the screen, I'll explain the reason that A11, the last page, the very last page. Yes, here. Oh, here. Yes. This is the multi-level drawings, and here we had with the approved layout, we had only 60 inches, and we had 8 feet here, and unfortunately the framer made a mistake and built this one 8 feet and this one higher. So with this difference, the total height and the main wall height went up, and we revised the drawings, submitted to the city for the review, and because it was a build, like we are here to get it heard and hopefully get it approved for my client, because it was an honest mistake which has been happened, and like it was something that happened during the construction. We got the permit with complying with all the zoning bylaw, and it was misfortunate for my client that this mistake happened. He had the choice to cut it, but he had the other choice to come to the committee of adjustment and get it approved through the committee of adjustment, because the variances are very, very minor compared to what have been heard even today. And we are only asking for 37 centimeter for main wall height and 49 centimeter for total height. So if there is any question, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, let's go to the speaker standing by.
William Embury. Mr. Embury?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, we do. State your name, please.
My name is William Embry. I live at 20 Doncaster Avenue. I'm directly south of 21 Epsom, and I'm also speaking for Kelly Richardson of 20 Doncaster Avenue.
Carry on, please. Tell us about your concerns about this.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you to the committee. I'm opposed to the variances requested at 21 Epsom Avenue. They are not minor and will have a serious long-term ramifications for my neighborhood. I respectfully request the committee refuse the application. The impact on my property is enormous. The increased height combined with the oversized floor-to-ceiling windows and rear basement walkout severely impacts my privacy and quality of life. All I see is this house from my windows, backyard, side yard. It's much taller than anything else. More troubling is the precedent it will set. It will permanently, it will set permanently altering the height of a very stable neighborhood, based not on sound planning, thoughtful design, and consultation, but on an error by an unsupervised carpenter. Like Doncaster Avenue, this area of Epsom is small and quiet with 13 houses per side, the majority of which are bungalows or a story and a half. For the most part, the homes remain as they were when they were built in the 1920s and 30s. The renovations have been minimal, non-invasive, and in keeping with the tone of the neighborhood. And most importantly, they adhere to the governing height zoning bylaws. There have been no teardowns. The care that homeowners take with renovations continues to this day. One neighbor described her work to increase living space in the house she shares with her parents. She has dismissed 2 ideas so far because of the impacts to setbacks in the tree canopy. She is concerned about the requested height variances. 3 professional builders living on the block related how hard they work to adhere to codes and bylaws. They disagree with the height increase. Residents are unaware that if this is approved, their hard work is pointless. All future homes and construction projects may now surpass the height zoning bylaws. Until July 2021, it seems Novenfar Group Inc. was building a house similar in height to the one they recently purchased for $938,000, renovated and sold for $1.925 million at 8 Oldwich Avenue. Fortunately for those neighbors, the flat-roofed house matches the prevailing heights and blends in well. About that sale, I'd like to quote from the listing agent's Facebook post of November 23rd, 2021, and the tag to #flippinghouses. Congratulations to my investor seller client for the successful sale. I mention this only to question how it fits with the 4 tests and how we grow the city. A neighbor described to me the heartbreak of wanting to sell her mother's home to someone who would care for it and love it, but she's not in a financial position to turn down an extra $100,000 from developers. The house at 21 Epsom is out of character in height and built form. It towers over even the tallest 2-story houses on the block. None of the existing homes go over the maximum building heights. It gives an appearance of being a 3-story building. The applicant had a request for a similar home in height variance at 15 Doncaster Avenue, declined by the COA on October 26, 2021. A September 2020 request for an overbuild at 23 Doncaster caused the COA to state that even a 2-story house at this address would be well over the height of most of the homes in the area. The application was denied and the owners reconfigured their proposal to fit within the height zoning bylaws. In conclusion, as an owner-occupier, I have a vested interest in the long-term revitalization of my neighborhood. I'm not a renter, real estate agent, developer, house flipper, or investor, and I will live every day with the consequences of this committee's decision. Large developer interest has moved in recently, but growth and refresh is nothing new to us in Danforth Village. In the 30 years I've lived here, I've seen my neighborhood change incrementally. Homes have been renovated and expanded while respecting the prevailing heights, massing, and scale of the area. What's being proposed at 21 Epsom doesn't follow this sensitive and gradual development pattern. It is neither minor nor desirable. It doesn't meet the 4 tests. On a granular level, this impacts my privacy, light, views, and quiet enjoyment of my home. More importantly, it threatens my plans to retire here and enjoy a neighborhood I thought was protected by local bylaws and codes. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, questions for the applicant? Okay.
Yes.
Let's go back then to the agent, who will have a chance to respond.
Yes, I listened to all the comment that he brought up, and unfortunately what he's mentioning is not the case, because for the privacy and the second floor location, elevation, nothing has been changed. If you compare the permit drawings, which is included in my design rationale, and the document that has been submitted to the city for the second floor elevation, nothing has been changed, and this one has been proved by the inspector at the site as well. The only thing has been changed is the roof, peak of the roof went higher than it was supposed to. So the window sizes are the same, the location of the second floor is the same, and we don't have any length variance, setback variance, nothing except these 2 variances that it has been done by mistake. And unfortunately, he's bringing up some personal information from my client, which I really don't know what's his problem. And but in the fact of the variances, these are very, very minor variance compared to the Planning Act and what has been approved and what is going to be approved in the neighborhood in general. If you have any questions regarding the second floor elevation or any other elevations, I would be happy to answer. But the privacy, even if my client doesn't get approved to this committee and need to go and cut the roof, the privacy is the same, because the second floor level is where it has to be, and nothing has been changed. It's only the peak of the roof went up.
Okay, any questions for this speaker, for the applicant, or the agent? No. Okay then. So I think at that point then we can take the application into committee. And just for those watching and for the information of the committee, of course, in a situation like this, even though this building was built with the permit, of course, the permit was not respected due to accident, we understand. So the position that the Committee of Adjustment is in is that we look at applications based on the 4 tests, and we look at them typically when they're still at the application phase. If an application has been built, then we still have to look at it and ask ourselves, would we have, at the application phase, have looked at this and said yes or no to it? So that's what we have to do really in this case, is to, even though there was a permit, we're still looking at it as if it hasn't been built, would we have said yes or no? Are there any thoughts by panel members? Ms. Valentini, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I understand change is very hard, and you know, it's hard to see neighborhoods that are sort of where there's been more, not sort of as many renovations, I guess, or just renovations within the existing building envelope, or the building, envelope. I think in this case, you know, sounds like the intention was to build within the bylaw. And I mean, we see numerous variances and applications before us, obviously. And I think if this came before us as an application rather than something that was built outside of the building permit, and that's how I'm treating it, I think the variances that are being requested are minor. I don't think that these are, in terms of we've heard it's just the peak, a bit of the sidewall, and I don't think that even the impact would be any greater than it would be if it was built within the confines of the bylaw, in my view. So I do think this meets the 4 tests, and I'm willing to bring forward a motion to support. I don't know if anybody else wants to have any other say or have any other comments, but okay, I'd like to bring forward a motion to approve the application for the reasons stated. I do believe it meets the 4 tests and is minor in nature, and that it be subject to urban forestry conditions number 1 and 2.
Just are there any? Okay, seconded by Mr. Byatt. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Those opposed, let the record show. Mullock opposed, and the application, or the motion is so carried, and the application is approved. And panel moves on to number 24. (292) Windermere Ave. We're looking here at the applicant's submission. We also have correspondence in support from 290 Windermere and an 8-signature petition in support from persons on Windermere Ave, Briarcroft Road, received 2 December. And we'll ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Vini Lução, and I am the designers and owner agents for 292 Windermere Avenue.
Good afternoon. Okay. So, moderator, just confirm with you, there's no one in registered in opposition, is it? Just owners, okay. Very good. Okay, panel, any questions of the applicant? None? Hearing none, then we can proceed to a motion, if someone is ready to do so. Ms. Valentini, please go ahead.
Thank you. I believe this one fits well within the existing context of the neighborhood. I did note that the rear addition will be similar in terms of depth, I think, as the neighbor adjacent, and it is a corner lot. And I also noted that the neighbor adjacent at 290 is in support, and so is 286. So I think this fits well within the neighborhood, and in my view, I think it meets the 4 tests. So on that basis, I'd like to bring forward a motion for approval without any conditions.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Byatt. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor? And that vote is unanimous to carry the motion and approve the application. Thank you. And we look at number 25, 120 Forest Hill Road, where we have applicants submitted materials, revised site plans, those received on 29 November. Presentation materials from the agent, December 1st. And a couple of COA decisions from 2007 and 2011, which affect the property. We also have a staff report from Heritage Preservation, and we have a letter of concern from 122 Forest Hill Road, Heather Regent. That would be next door. So, very good. Let's have the applicant join us, please.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Richard Wengel. I'm the architect for the proposal 102 Avenue Road.
Very good, thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair,
And,
if you'd like me to present, I can do a short presentation.
Why don't you do that? Because I believe we have someone observing. So go ahead, please, and do that. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a proposal for a second-story addition to the rear of the existing home. It's a heritage dwelling, and as such, we have actually conferred with heritage staff and have made slight adjustments to our plan. It doesn't affect our variances as well. Planning is in support. We will have a letter of support from number 4 Frybrook. That's a new letter that just came in. That's the rear neighbor to the west of the property, and there's a letter from number 119 Dunvegan as well. That's to the northwest of the property, again at the rear. The south neighbor at 118 Forest Hill Road in support. And then number 122, the letter of concern just says, in the spirit of good neighborly relations, I will not object if there's a certainty that the drawings sent are not altered. So if the committee deems this reasonable and will support it, then we are happy to have the decision tied to the drawings and would be happy to have them held to plan. This addition essentially works, you'll see items number 1 is dealing with the FSI density. Items 2, 3, 4, and 5 deal with the length, depth, rear yard setback, and side setback. Again, these are actually not changing. There are 3 additions to this house, one in 1940, one in 2007, and one in 2002. Essentially all we're doing, 2012, we're just adding a second-story addition across the entire addition. So therefore, we're not changing any of these variances. They are existing. In our presentation package, you can just see on the 3rd page, you'll see the site plan. And in green is the proposed addition, which sits exactly over the additional garage that was added a while ago, as well as the family room that was already existing. So the driveway remains the same. Page number 4 is just showing a neighborhood density map, and our FSI is at 67%, and you'll see in green all the committee decisions that are above what we've been asking in the immediate area. And then page number 5 is just done a tally of all the length of dwelling approvals, and our site is in blue at 32.35, and you'll see many others higher than that circled in red, so it falls within the realm. And then just page 6 will just show the addition where we're proposing. Green is the existing, the white is the proposed. And page number 7, just a shot from, this is a shot from Frybrook, and you'll see, you can't even see the house. So when the addition was done, I believe in 2007, they actually planted many hedges. So when we do the addition, you won't even be able to see it. And then we've done shadow studies just to alleviate the concerns of the neighbor to the north, and there's no adverse impact because of the amount of vegetation that's already existing that was pre-planted. And another page of shadow studies, as well as page number 10, just shows the amount of landscaping behind the house. And again, this was taken just before the leaves came out end of April. I took these photos myself, and you can see those copper beech hedges are running over 20 feet high. And so when in full bloom, there'll be no shadow impact from our house whatsoever. The trees themselves will be the cause of shadow, and these are the neighbors' trees. So we're happy to tie to plan. I think it's a straightforward application. Happy to answer any questions of committee.
Very good. Are there any questions, panel? The letter of concern that we received was with respect to window placement on the north side of the addition, and also height. So could you just comment on what you've done to, on how you would?
We're happy to be held to plan and elevations as submitted, and there's no intent to change any of that.
Okay.
We're satisfied with our design.
I think that would probably do it, yeah. Thank you. Okay. So if there are no further questions of the, any questions of the agent, then I look to panel. Let's take it into committee, and for a motion, please. Mr. Bayek, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think the fact that the second floor extension is being built on an existing structure that goes a long way to mitigate the impact. And as the agent has indicated, I'd be quite happy to move a motion to approve, subject to being tied to the plans as presented.
Very good. There is that motion. Is there a seconder for that?
I'm happy to second it, but I believe there's also a heritage condition that needs to be imposed, so if we could include that as well, that would be okay.
Yes,
on that
please.
basis, I'll
Thank you.
second it.
Okay. Very good. Moved and seconded to approve. Tied, subject to being tied to the drawings and to heritage. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And the motion is carried. The application is so approved. We go on to number 26, 455 Ossington. Applicant materials are before us. There's a site plan from August the 18th and presentation materials from December the 1st from the agent. Who we shall ask to join us, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Franco Romano, Action Planning, 2095 Autumn Breeze in Port Credit.
Good afternoon to you. Okay, panel members, any requests here for a presentation? Would you like to put questions to the applicant? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thank you. I noticed that in your presentation materials, there's a reference to the green roof on the laneway suite, but I don't recognize that in any of the plans, because that was one of my main concerns, is the lack of soft landscaping on this, and I think that the provision of a green roof on the laneway suite would go a long way to addressing that. So I'm just wondering if that's in any of the actual plans.
Thank you for that question, through Mr. Chairman. The plans include a minimum green space area on the laneway suite of 27 square meters, and that's shown on the roof plan and I think the second story plan, and that is consistent with the achieving that landscape requirement in between the two buildings.
Thanks. My eyes aren't that good.
Okay. If there are no further questions, let's move to a motion. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I think that given the context of this site, it's a very urban site, basically flanking Main Street, pretty dense Main Street development. And so I think that the variances being requested are reasonable given that context, and particularly given the fact that the green roof is being proposed on top of the laneway suite. So I would move to approve it, but I'd just like to add the condition of just so it's clear, of the 27 square meters of green roof being provided on the roof of the laneway suite.
Very good. Staff, you've got that okay? Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded, Ms. Valentini. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands. And unanimous vote carries the motion. The application is approved. Number 27 is 673 and 675 Crawford. Here we have a revised agenda showing the correct address as revised on the public notice. There are submitted materials. Copy of the draft plan of survey, covering letter from the agent, 29 August, an arborist report, August 19, staff report urban forestry, and support in the form of an 11 signature petition. Persons on Crawford received 30th November, and there is interest or concern expressed in a letter from 668 Crawford, Lynn Martins. Okay. So let's have the agent join us.
Hello again, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Eddie Perez. I'm here on behalf of the clients and the designer.
Good afternoon. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Moderator, do we have someone standing by? Okay. So, Mr. Perez, you have 5 minutes to highlight the main items of your application. Go ahead, please.
Okay, this project, as you can see, is originally it's a semi-detached dwellings on the property, but the lots are so narrow that it was very hard to come up with 2 new houses. So my client decided to do one house instead. So we're making it into one lot and gonna have 2 units in it. And we have a few variances which I feel are minor in nature and are in keeping in the area. There are many houses that have been built with 3 stories, and if you can put up the elevation, the side elevation, you can see again that we did a partial 3rd floor. It's not an entire 3rd floor. It's pushed in a little bit at the front and at the back as well. And the height is in keeping with approvals in the area as well. The floor index is at 0.99, which has also been approved. Some are even been higher in the area. And then we have a variance for the garage as well, which is 40 square meters. We're slightly over at 48.13. And then we have the also soft landscaping at the rear, which is instead of 50%, we have 29.5. And then the height is 10 meters. We have 10.6. I feel that what we're proposing is in keeping within the area, and it's a good proposal for this site.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's go now to the person standing by in interest and have them join us, please.
Tara Chang, you've been unmuted.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Tara, are you there? Clearly no answer. That was the phone that I had reached out to. This person was not in hearing before I called them. Do you want me to remove them and call again?
Please, let's take a quick try. No luck?
It doesn't seem like we're able to get a hold of Tara.
Okay, very good. We'll move along then. We'll go back to the process. Okay then. Any questions, panel, for the agent? In that case, Ms.
Sorry, so have the parcels merged together now, or is that taken care of?
Yes, it's gonna be one property. They're gonna.
But, so you're still pending approval, or it's happened?
No, the lawyers will do it after, to merge
Okay.
into one.
Oh, okay, I thought it was a committee thing that you said in your letter, so it is gonna be happening with,
Yeah.
through the lawyers, just by change title. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay then, if there are no further questions, we can go to a motion. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
I think this is a reasonable proposal, and my only real concern was the rear yard soft landscaping, but I think that's partly an effect of the garage size. I mean, what's left over is pretty much has as much green as it can, I think. So I think it's coming from a good place, and I think it's a sensitive design. And the variances are all quite minor. So I move to approve this project, this application, subject to urban forestry condition 1 and 2.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded to approve subject to forestry. Those in favor? Motion carried. The application is so approved. Thank you. Number 28 is 146 Morrison Ave. And here the only items we have before us are the submitted items from the applicant. And we'll ask
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ian Cunha representing the owners of 146 Morrison Avenue.
Good afternoon, Ian. Okay, glad to have you with us. Panel members.
Thank you.
Here's the agent. Any questions for the agent? Don't appear to be. Okay then. In that case, we can move to a motion. If someone is prepared, Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This definitely is a very minor request, a request for very, very minor changes. I have no difficulty in putting forward a motion to approve without any conditions.
That is seconded by Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor? Unanimous. The motion's carried and the application is approved. Thanks for that. Brings the panel to number 29, 111 Dewborn. And moderator, just a question here. The word late here is beside the,
It's likely a late registrant, but that person is in the hearing room.
okay. That person is the agent, correct? No, not the agent. That person is speaking in what capacity, do we know? Okay, fine, okay. Okay, that's important. Okay, agent, join us, please. State your name.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Franco Romano, Action Planning, 2095 Autumn Breeze Drive, for credit. On behalf of the owner.
Thank you very much, okay. Mr. Romano, if you could.
Yes.
You have 5 minutes to present your application and its highlights to the panel. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. If we can move down to the presentation material, I think it's E4. Thank you kindly, appreciate that. So this is a proposal for a new 3-story dwelling. The 3rd story is built within the roof line. The 3rd story is about 50 square meters, and you'll see that in all respects, front yard, side yards, rear yard, building length, building depth, wall heights, the proposal complies with the zoning bylaw. There's one variance, and that is for a floor space index of 0.81, whereas 0.4 is permitted. And you'll see that in this case, in the elevations, you'll see that the 3rd floor is built within the roof line. That contributes, as I mentioned, 50 square meters to the floor area. And what we see along the street and within the neighborhood is that the amount of regeneration that has been occurring is of a similar kind. 2 3-story dwellings, sometimes the 3rd floor is built within the roof line, other times it accommodates more mass within the roof, and you'll see some of those photographs there. See 101 Newborn at 0.83 and its presentation and streetscape, double car garage basically. Can't really tell how many floors there are above the garage because of that architectural style. It's definitely a 3-story dwelling presentation. 168 and 166 in the middle photograph, Dewborn, 0.85 to 0.87. This is illustrative of how floor space index does not necessarily identify what height, mass, and scale is, because the 0.87 is the building on the right. It's actually smaller in its presentation to the street than the 0.85, which has the 3rd floor within the roof line. And then the lower photograph is number 179 at 0.85. Single car integrated garage, 2 levels of living above. And that's what is being proposed here. It's a single car above grade garage, 3 levels of living above, and the 3rd floor built within the roof line. So there are no unacceptable adverse impacts that results. I did read the letter that was submitted on file by the neighbor to the east, and it's my understanding that the owner did approach that neighbor in order to prune, as is the owner's right, that tree that is on the neighbor's property, and that the pruning was done in accordance with good horticultural practices. The windows that are east facing, which is also articulated in that letter, are staircase windows and then an ensuite on the 2nd floor. So there's not even secondary windows that are provided for on that east side elevation. Subject to any questions, is that the single variance satisfies all 4 tests for a minor variance and has no unacceptable adverse impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to the person standing by. And we have that person's letter on file here too.
Hello,
Yes, state your name, please.
my name is Stan Applebaum. I live at 109 Dewborn Avenue to the east of the property in question.
Thank you very much. And Stan, we have your letter on file. I'd like you have 5 minutes to address your concerns to the panel. So tell us about the impacts that you're concerned about on this, where this application to proceed.
Okay. I'm interested in knowing about the trees. I have very large oak tree whose branches extend into the backyard of 111 Dewborn. He attempted to take off the entire branch when he purchased the property when he did purchase the property before even living there. He doesn't live there, he's rented the property in the meantime. But in the meantime, he had somebody wanting to chop off a huge limb, the entire branch, and to hire a tree pruner who actually was who educated him. The pruner, my pruner, was the teacher of this other chap, and told him, no, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. He was forced to comply. Second, my tree expert said that pruning can only happen once every 5 years. So I'm concerned about the property impacting my trees when it's being constructed. Number two was the fence between the two properties. Obviously, there are evergreen trees that the previous owner planted as a border that have impacted my fence. It's now leaning as a result of that, but now that the construction will take place, I assume those evergreens will be removed. And there were like 15 of them. And windows on the east side. I saw for the first time the drawings, and so I'll have to live with the windows on the east side, I suppose. And so I have one window there on my second floor. The third story is not in keeping with the neighborhood. One of the properties mentioned is on the other side of Bathurst Street. Yes, it's a Dewborn address, but it's in Forest Hill, and it's on the other side of Bathurst Street. The other three that were mentioned are brand new construction, totally, and I didn't think of them as 3 floors, and I'm seeing the drawings made by the architect, and I see that, yeah, okay, the 3rd floor, and I've listened for the last couple of hours to the committee, and I'm hearing that 3rd floors are, happening. So I understand that you're gonna abide by that, in spite of the fact that it's doubling the size of the previous 0.4 to now 0.81 in size. One thing I heard was there's safe farm and indemnification from water. Something mentioned that earlier in one of the, and I'm wondering how impactful the new construction will be in that matter, with all the increased rainfall happening in Toronto. I've had a flood back in 2012 whenever that huge rainfall happened. I'm concerned about that issue happening again. So that's the gist of it for me. Yeah, so I defer to your judgment.
Thank you very much. We'll return now to the applicant for his chance to comment on your concerns. Applicant? Agent?
Thank you kindly, appreciate it. All 3 of those houses, or I guess 3 of those photographs that show multiple houses, are all on the same side of Bathurst Street as the subject site. And then looking at property map, one of them is within the same block. The other 2 are within the immediately adjacent block, both of which are under consideration under the official plan. In terms of trees, they're all going to be protected, and we will have the owner obtain city permits as required for both the city tree and any private trees. So there's no plan to remove any trees. And the fence in between the two properties, that will likely be continued in some fashion, whether existing or some modified or new fence in the future. And of course, there's a fence bylaw that would have to be followed in that regard. Three-story dwellings do exist. They exist in substantial form, and they certainly exist in substantial form in terms of new construction and what's occurring. And in terms of rainfall, grading and drainage plan that the city requires to be submitted and approved, constructed with, in accordance with, is done at the building permit stage. So in accordance with the building permit requirements, as well as fully compliant building setbacks, building length, I don't believe there's going to be any grading or drainage issues resulting from this proposal. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions or points of clarification. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Panel members, your opportunity to put questions to the applicant. No? All right then. Let's take the application then into committee for a motion. Ms. Valentini, go ahead.
Thank you. We have one variance before us, and I'm not saying just because it's one variance it means it's minor. It does look like it's a large increase, but I am satisfied, as Mr. Romano pointed out, it does fit within the context of what's permitted in terms of setbacks, height, and whatnot. And I'm satisfied. I think his presentation materials were well done. I do think it's going to fit in with some of the existing new builds in the area. And I don't see, in my view, any significant adverse impacts on neighbors. So that being said, I don't know if there's any further comments, but I'm happy to bring a motion forward. In my view, it meets the 4 tests, and so it'd be a motion for approval without any conditions.
Thank you. To that motion, there is a second. Mr. Reed.
I think there's urban forestry 1 and 2 for that.
Yes, thank you.
I'd be happy to
Sorry
second
about that. I missed that.
No worries.
Okay,
Is
forestry.
it 1 and 2 or 2 and 3? I wrote down 2 and 3. Oh, it's 1 and 2. Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, motion seconded to approve, subject to forestry. Those in favor? Show of hands, unanimous vote. That motion is carried and the application is so approved. We go on to number 30.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, who seconded that motion?
That motion was seconded by Mr. Reed.
Okay, thank you.
And we go to number 30, number 30, 4 Condor Ave. The only materials before us are the submission from the applicant and an urban forestry permit for the removal of 1 bylaw protected tree. And that was issued on July the 15th. So let's have the agent join us by stating your name.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, members of committee and city employees. My name is Giorgio Lewis, representing the file in front of us today.
Good afternoon.
We have, sorry, sir, go ahead.
Good afternoon, George. Okay. Giorgio.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to check with panel colleagues to see if they'd like a presentation or have any questions. No. No, so hearing none. Panel, in that case, we can move to a motion, please. Mr. Cheng, go ahead.
Yes, I think this is very straightforward application, and I have reviewed both bylaws and the drawings. I think they are appropriate. I would support to approve this application subject to the tree permit, which is already issued. So I guess there's no condition.
Very good. Second to that? That is seconded. Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor? Show of hands. Unanimous vote to carry the motion. And the application is approved. Thank you. And our attention turns to number 31. 21 Queen Victoria Street. And on this one, I know the variances have been revised to some degree, so we'll just make sure that we're dealing with the correct ones. But we'll ask the agent to join us now, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Tony Diodati. I am the applicant and the architect for this proposal.
Good afternoon. Okay, now, question then, Tony, have the changes you made to the minor variances, do you know whether, were they all done back about the 30th of November? At the end
Yes, that's correct.
At the end of
'Cause
November.
I was contacted by community planning,
okay.
and through my conversations with them, I made some revisions to the drawings to satisfy community planning and have attached drawings that reflect these changes.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure that that's what we're dealing with. I can maybe turn to staff and ask if staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would ask Tony to go through the variances so that we have the revisions on public record.
For clarity, okay, let's do that. Okay, Tony, we have to make sure that we're dealing with the revised variances. So you and I can do a short exercise here. And all you have to tell me, don't give me any reasons or explanations. I just need to know the new number, the revised number that was submitted in November, to make sure that's what the committee is looking at. So for variance number 1, the height of the side main walls facing a side lot line will be
9.665 meters.
Okay, good. We're doing this because that is different from what we're showing. We're showing 9.96. Let's do the same thing on number 2. The new dwelling will have floor space index equal to?
It remains the same, 0.84 times.
Thank you. Variance number 3. The front canopy will encroach?
1.59 meters. That too remains the same, no change.
Thank you. Number 4, the new dwelling will have a height of?
Actually, it is 9.9 meters, so this has been deleted because we are now under the maximum permitted building height allowance.
There you go. So number 4 is deleted. And number 5, west side entrance stairs will be located
0.313 meters.
Please repeat.
From the side.
Please repeat that for me.
So it will now be located 0.313 meters.
Thank you very much. 0.313. Okay, and that's different too. I'm glad we did that because now the panel, staff, everybody is dealing with the correct numbers. Good. Thank you.
And number 6 is also deleted.
And 6 is deleted too. Oh yes, right. Very good. Okay. Okay then. Panel members, any questions for the agent? So panel, obviously there have been some revisions to the variances, all of which make the variances less onerous. And If there are no questions, I guess we can move to a motion. Mr. Byett, pardon me, go ahead.
No problem, Mr. Chair. Thank you very kindly. Having looked at all the revisions and deletions of a couple of variances, I'm quite satisfied to move forward with the motion to approve the application. I believe there's a forestry condition 2 and 3. I don't believe there's anything other than that. So having said that, I would motion to approve.
Thank you very much.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended.
As
Thank
amended.
you.
There we are. Is there a second to that? There is. Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded to approve the application as amended, subject to forestry. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried. So the application is approved as amended. And panel moves on to number 32. On number 32, 195 Holborn Ave. We have applicants submitted materials for photographs of the property, 26 August, and presentation materials from the agent, December the 1st. Agent, please join us by stating your name.
Hi, this is Parisa Amiri, 50 Woodville Avenue.
I beg your pardon?
This is Parisa Amiri. I'm the architect and the applicant. My
Yes.
address is 50 Woodville Avenue.
Thank you very much. Very good. Good to have you with us once again. And
Yes.
let's check with the panel. Any questions, panel? No? Okay, hearing none, I'll look to the panel for a motion, please. Mr. Reed.
Thanks. I think this is about as minor as we get. We're just talking about 30 centimeters in height for the variances being requested, and the rest of the application is pretty modest, I think, and sensitive to its neighbors. So, given the minor nature of the variances being requested, I move to approve this application with no conditions.
Thank you.
Forestry number 3.
Yes, first and number 2.
I didn't have that down. Thank you. Forestry number 3.
Very good. Okay. Mr. Byett seconds. So moved and carried to approve, subject to forestry. Those in favor, show of hands, please. That vote is unanimous. It carries the motion. The application is approved. Now, number 33, 19 Athlone, we have submitted materials. There's a map and a chart from the agent from December 7, and there are 2 form letters in support, signed by owners and occupants of 18 and 21 Athlone. Okay. I'll check with the moderator to see if we do have someone standing by in opposition or interest.
We do not.
We do
They
not.
were not here. They were called, they joined, and then they chose to leave.
Okay. So, we have tried to make this connection, but on this application as it stands, there is no one speaking in opposition on number 19. So we'll ask the agent to join us, please.
Mr. Chairman,
My name is Farzin, the owner and designer of the house.
You're the owner and agent?
Yes.
Thank you. Your voice is a little muffled, but thank you very much. I'm going to check with panel members. Any questions here, panel? No. Don't hear any. In that case, I do look to the panel for a motion. Ms. Valentini, yes.
Thank you. I've looked at the materials and I'm in favor of this application. I did note that there are other two-story houses on the street, so I think this will fit in with what's currently existing in the area. And I think the variances meet the test for minor variance, and I also note that the applicant did provide in the supplementary materials precedents for the area, so this fits in with what's currently happening. So I'd like to bring a motion forward for approval, and I don't have any conditions noted here.
Thank you. That is seconded. Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor? Show of hands. Motion carried by unanimous vote. The application is approved without condition. '54 Cowan Avenue.
باید خودش نبودا رو شاب میکردم فقط قشنگ شاب میکرده بودم نگاش کن باش کن نگاش کن
Okay, 54 Cowan Avenue. Before us we have Applicant Materials, 9 photographs submitted December 7. Cover letter from the agent. Arborist report. Copy of an email of an application to injure a tree from August. Presentation materials dated December 1 from the agent. A report commenting from community planning. And there is a mixture here of correspondence in support and opposition. In support from 139 Dunn and from 52 Cowan. In opposition from 56 Cowan, 39, 60, 75 Cowan, 67 Cowan. There is a 25 signature petition in opposition by the owners and occupants of addresses on Cowan Avenue. And a further 24 signature petition in opposition signed by owners of properties on Cowan, received December the 1st.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we also received a very late submission yesterday evening from community planning, requesting that the committee consider a deferral to allow the applicant to continue discussions with the housing policy planner.
Very important, thank you. That was from community planning.
Yes.
So panel, bear that in mind. There is a recent communication just yesterday from community planning to suggest that panel consider deferral in order to allow consultation. It sounds like there's been some consultation begun, or?
It would be to continue discussions with the housing policy planner.
To continue discussions with the housing policy planner. So that's a late development, but it's important. And we'll ask the agent to join us.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, my name is Adam Olson. I'm here as the agent on behalf of the owners, my sister Monica and her partner Ida.
Very good. Okay. And I'm just going to check with the moderator. Moderator, is there just one person in opposition standing by?
No, Mr. Chair, we have 4 people in opposition standing by, or 3 in opposition,
Oh,
1
now
in
I see.
interest.
Pardon me. Thank you. Okay. I got it now. Okay, then. Well, let's just deal with this suggestion from community planning. Mr. Molson, there's been a suggestion made to the committee. We're just hearing of it now. It arrived late yesterday. Of their suggestion for us to possibly consider deferral in order to allow consultation to continue between you and housing policy. Can you tell us about that? Has that already begun?
Yes, I can speak to that. So we first reached out to Bruna Nigro, the planner on this file back in August to review it with her, and were informed at the time that she had no concerns with it, and an email confirming that fact as part of the Application Information Center. This letter, even though I'm listed as copied, we actually did not receive, and we only saw it posted to the portal this morning. My sister Monica phoned Bruna and learned that she was instructed to submit this by her manager. She said she continues not to have concerns with the application. However, they did flag something from a housing policy planner, and so Monica did reach out to that planner and speak to them this morning, and we understand that they had not been given the file, and that I think it was flagged because of some new OPA changes with regards to rooming houses. However, the housing policy planner acknowledged that this house was converted by the previous owner 7 years ago from a rooming house and is no longer functioning as a rooming house. And there's no circumstance where they would actually looking for it to be converted back to a rooming house. So we were kind of quite surprised this all came out quite unexpected. We're not really sure what discussion there even is really to be had, to be honest. It sounds like this person just was informed of the file today and hasn't really familiarized themselves with it. And the manager again instructed the planner to submit this letter despite the actual community planner not having any concerns with the application.
And the main message from housing policy was that this property had been converted away from being a rooming house, and housing policy had no intention of it going back the other direction. Is that did I hear you right?
Correct, and I think it's simply because there was an OPA change that passed just last month, so after we even filed our application to the committee, but there is a new provision in the OPA regarding the conversion of rooming houses that are 6 or more dwelling rooms. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's for that reason, perhaps, and I'm sorry that we must say that we are somewhat speculating on this because we've only had communication on this just in the last couple hours, despite engaging with the city for months on this. Mm-hmm. But it seems like that OPA change was picked up, and so it was referred to the housing policy team at this sort of 11th hour.
Well, let's just think our way through this then. Now, the purpose of your application is to permit the conversion of a rooming house into a 3-unit dwelling without the benefit of a permit. That's the first.
Can I actually clarify that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, please do.
So as I mentioned, the house was converted from a rooming house to a 3-unit property without permits by the previous owner 7 years ago.
Yeah.
There was an order to comply registered against the property, and you'll see the details of it listed at the top of maybe on the second page of the zoning notice. And so really the order to comply speaks to the fact that the work was done without permits rather than the conversion itself. The conversion is in a as of right allowance, but again, the work was done without permits, and so that's why the order to comply was filed. This application is not to go and legalize that. This application is for a substantial renovation that is something other than what the previous owner did. However, in the course of doing that, it would resolve the order to comply by having a properly permitted building that has gone through the proper committee process.
Okay. All right, then, so the comment that we have heard conveyed through you about housing policy, about their not intending the house to go back to being a rooming house, would seem not to be up against the purpose of your application. They're not at loggerheads, but
correct. The application purely relates to built form. You'll see the variances are purely a built form issue.
Okay.
There's nothing with regards to use in any of the variances that are being applied for.
Okay. Let's just take this into committee for a moment. Panel members, I don't personally see any benefit here in deferring, or even, does anyone think we should defer? I'd be interested to. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
I just find it hard because planning has a letter, but they really didn't give any detail in it. And so in the absence of that detail, I think it's hard to defer. I think it's unfair.
Yeah.
So I would be inclined to continue on.
Further thoughts, anybody? Does anybody feel strongly we should defer? Or Mr. Wright, go ahead, your comment.
Nothing controversial, just to concur with Mr. Reed, because I think it's difficult to have follow a recommendation that seems not to be very clear in its explanation, and it doesn't appear to be a forceful recommendation either. So I think it would be unfair to move forward with the deferral.
I feel that also. And so in the absence of comments from my other colleagues, just check with the Deputy Secretary Treasurer. Our feeling, Deputy Secretary Treasurer, is to proceed to hear the application.
If that's the decision of the committee, yes.
Okay then, let's do that. We shall proceed to hear the application. Okay, so we now have with us the agent and the owner. And we have speakers registered. So, agent, you have 5 minutes to present the highlights of your application to the panel. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, committee. Would it be possible to bring up the presentation materials submitted on December 1st? Okay, so thank you. So once again, my sister Monica and her partner Aiden purchased this home last year with the intention of renovating it to become their family home. This photo illustrates the home today. If we move to the next slide, we'll see an image that illustrates the proposed application. So the home currently has 3 units, and as I noted in our preamble, there was an outstanding order to comply that this application is not looking to legalize, but will correct through the course of going through the process. The application before you, it proposes to extend the 2nd and 3rd floors to provide an owner suite to accommodate Monica and Aiden's family of 4. Rental units will also continue to be included in the building. We're not touching the brick on the lower 2 floors with this application. The A-frame portion of the roof is being maintained, and a pitched roof is being added in behind to allow the full height 3rd floor. The front porch will be restored with railing and column details, more in keeping with the architectural style of the traditional facade. If we go to the next slide, we'll just see a summary of the variances requested. There are 5 variances with this application, although 2 are duplicates between the citywide and harmonized bylaws, or sorry, the old city and harmonized bylaws relating to height. The change to the main wall and roof requires a variance, but as we outlined on the earlier slide, The design intervention is minimal and being done with as much care and sensitivity as possible to the existing condition. If we go to the next slide, you'll see a section that illustrates the variances for height and depth. And so we'd very much like to highlight that the height and depth that being proposed with this application are actually the current height and depth of the building as it exists today. So the building is already currently 11.44 meters high at the front peak and 19.11 meters deep at the back. And so we're not changing the footprint of the home from what it is. It remains exactly as it stands today. We'd also like to highlight the fact that this addition fits within the as of right density and no variances related to FSI are required. Our application is for a 0.9 FSI and 1.0 is permitted. If we go to the next slide, you'll see there's a summary just showing many precedents for the variances we are requesting. This is but a sampling of relevant ones that we were able to look up within 500 meters of the property. And many are on Cowan and for heights or depths in excess of what we are requesting here today. If you go to the next image, you'll see some photos from down the street, just providing some more context. It's common on Cowan for homes to have a third level with full ceiling height across the majority of the floor. The examples on the right show that this is not just for sort of originally built designs, but also include additions where people have topped up sidewalls to the height equal of the main building and done so behind a street-facing pitched roof. If we go to the next slide, you'll see a photo of 21 Cowan Avenue, which is just, again, another example showing that there's a diversity of architectural styles on the street. Again, kind of up to a third height and full height sidewalls on the additions. And then the photo on the right of 48 Cowan is just 3 homes to the south of this property, again, showing precedent of tall sidewalls to the full building height and going for the full depth all the way to the rear of the property. If you go to the next slide, I just want to speak a little bit about the outreach and communication done by Monica and Aiden. So neighbors on either side, as well as to the front and rear were approached. The neighbor to the south provided a letter of support, while the neighbors behind chose not to engage. The neighbor across the street was engaged multiple times. He confirmed he received the plans and said he hadn't looked at them. But then we saw just on Monday, a letter of objection was submitted without too much detail in the rationale or having actually returned our communications or attempting to discuss in any way with us. The neighbor to the north at 56 Cowan indicated they had concerns with the proposal when Monica and I met with them. Monica and I
I'll ask you to make your final comments, please.
Sure. There were 3 additional meetings and 15 follow-up phone calls, and through those conversations, it was expressed that the side door entrance, which is not a variance, was the primary concern. They drafted this restriction on title in terms of an agreement to move the door, which Monica and Naiden were willing to do. They invested a bunch of time and money redrawing plans and securing easement rights to make this happen, but ultimately could not come to an agreement, and then you sort of saw the flood of petitions and letters that followed.
And your time is now up.
So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then, let's hear panel questions for the applicant at this stage. We'll go ahead and hear from the speakers. Okay. So, moderator, with you.
Okay, it seems like 2 of the users who have joined after being called have decided to leave.
Okay.
So we're left with Jill Greaves.
Hi there, I'm Jill Graves. I am the neighbor at 56 Cowan. I am seated or located at the north of the property in question. We share a driveway. I wanted to point out that myself and many of the neighbors object to the proposal, and that the variances, we believe, are not minor. They increase the height and overlook into my backyard incredibly. They increase the overshadowing, both to the properties to the east, as well as 4 properties to the north of this house. The extension of the 3rd floor from the front of the building all the way to the very back of the extended building is what basically makes my backyard in shadow. It increases from almost nothing to extreme overlook of my family, my house, my yard, and my deck. And then the extension of the deck on the back of the building by another 12 feet further increases this. There are windows on the north side of the building that give a perfect view of my backyard and the side of my house and the deck where my children and my family eat dinner every day in the summer. And there are no other properties with that kind of overlook on my property. There are trees that block the view. There are neighbors with kitchens that exit onto the main floor of the building or the backyard, but not on the second floor. There are no decks on the second floor with kitchens attached to them that'll be used like this one will be. And I wanted to also say that we asked the city councilor if he would consider mediating. He said, of course, that they would, as I guess they are obligated to do if someone asks. And we, by that, I mean the group of neighbors that are objecting. And we sent a letter to Monica and Iden 3 times in the last 2 weeks to ask if they would mediate this with us, because we had so many objections, and they're all detailed in the letters of objection that I sent in as well as the neighbors. And they ignored our request. The letter's on file, you can take a look at it. We also offered to help, I personally offered to help them find an architect to finish the building properly. So I offered as well to bring a bunch of neighbors together so we could all stand in the front yard and talk about this proposal, so that there would be no objections. And they refused to do so. So they may have engaged the neighbors by knocking on their door, but they certainly didn't have a discussion with them. I think that the changes to the house are not minor. The consequences of these variances are not minor. If you look at the extension of the occupied space at the lower level of the building, which moves forward under the porch to the property line, you realize that you have to excavate the whole area underneath the porch to make bedrooms. You have to eliminate the front wall from the lower level down to enable that. You have to completely eliminate and demolish the roof. It's an absolutely extreme change to the front of the house. I can't imagine that you could change structurally the floor height that they've asked for, the floor to ceiling of the interior spaces from 8 feet to 10 feet without making major structural, changes to the building itself, which will necessitate almost demolition, near demolition basically, of the front facade. I don't think as well that it's appropriate or safe to have a basement entrance for two-bedroom family suites off of an active driveway. I don't know how that is supported in any city plan that calls for safe and quality housing, affordable housing. I also believe that having a 3,600 square foot primary unit in this apartment, or in this building, with 2 500 square foot basement apartments, which exit onto the driveway, does not uphold any of the objectives of the city plan. How can we actually, how can that be possible? If people who can't afford a better place to live can endanger their lives and the lives of their children by exiting into the path of oncoming traffic. This is a vehicular pathway. It's not a pedestrian entrance. And there's a perfectly good and existing entrance to the basement on the south side of the building, or to the building anyway, and the front and the rear of the building.
I must ask you for your final comments, please.
Okay, my comments are, given the numerous concerns raised by the variances when taken in aggregate, this proposal should be rejected outright or deferred until it can be dealt with the neighbors, and we can discuss this with the applicants and come to some sort of proposal that we can all approve together.
Thank you very much. Panel members, any questions to put to this speaker? No. Hearing none, We'll check back with the moderator.
Final speaker is Consuelo De La Vega.
Consuelo, okay. Consuelo,
Yes, good evening. I hope I can be heard.
you are heard. Just state your name, please,
Yes,
for the record.
my name is Consuelo De La Vega. I live across the address in question. I'm at 61 Cowan Avenue, and I would like to express support for Jill's objection. I also have an objection along with many of our neighbors, and I'd like to advocate for the health of the tree. One of my biggest objections is the fact that the tree could very well be harmed, and even with the express tree protection zone, and that forestry might come in to take a look and see what of the roots might have to be pruned. I think reading the other objection letters from some of our neighbors, they articulate in more technical terms, better than I can, what the dangers of this proposal are. And I think in closing, I just want to echo Jill's final comments, which are that it would be a good idea to reject this application or defer until the Monica Morrison can talk with her neighbors and find a better way and a better solution. Our street is known for coming together and collaborating with each other. And I heard in an earlier application a recommendation similar to that, what we are asking for. So, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Consuelo? Okay. Moderator, do we have anyone else now? So, panel, we have heard now from all the registered speakers that have stayed with us. So we'll go back now to the agent, who will have an opportunity to comment on these two speakers in rebuttal. Go ahead, agent.
Yes, thank you. So first of all, I just want to reiterate, Monica and I did meet with Greg and her partner 3 times and had 15 follow-up phone calls over multiple months. At the time, we were told that the side door was the issue, and all of the efforts and time was spent on resolving that because none of these other items were raised as the focus of the concern. What we heard today was a lot about overlook. If you can bring up the photos that were submitted yesterday, there's a photo on the 3rd page that illustrates the condition when you're standing in the backyard currently. Is it possible to bring that up? So on the 3rd page in this file, you'll see, that one there. So the property line is at that post with the little yellow stripes on it. So you can see there's no actual fence between the properties at the rear yard beyond that small chain link fence delineating the driveways. Standing at grade, you have pretty much unobstructed overlook into the property currently. So I think this concern about overlook and privacy, from our mind, is not necessarily fair or justified given the current condition of the rear yard. There are also, I would note, on the existing structure, existing decks on the 2nd and 3rd floor. And our application does propose to have privacy screens along the side so that the new decks as part of this would be screened to prevent any further overlook. If you see in images 1 and 2 in this file, there's also a fire escape currently that provides quite a great deal of overlook when going up and down onto the property. We will actually be removing that as part of this application, as there will be proper exiting with the new design. So that overlook condition is actually going to be reduced through what is proposed. The side door, which we heard about, again, we have a little bit of trouble with, as Jill's property herself has a side door entering onto the driveway as visible onto images number 5 and 7. So again, we don't think it's necessarily fair for that to sort of apply necessarily to one or the other. It's also not a zoning issue. That's something we could apply for a permit tomorrow and install independent of this application if that was so planned. Last item is just the tree. We have gone and proactively gotten an arborist report. We have started the process with urban forestry. All of the work contemplated would be actually behind the porch. We would be underpinning it from the inside. So we would be adhering to all the requirements around the tree protection zone. And obviously it's a beautiful old tree, and our intent is absolutely to preserve it to the extent that we can. And so I think we're all aligned in wanting to be sensitive and protective of that tree through this process. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Okay. Panel. Your chance to put questions. Mr. Chen, go ahead.
Hi, hello. So generally speaking, I think the proposal makes sense, but the zoning variance item number 1, which I think your neighbor had brought it up in a different way, not in such a technical way, but the zoning basically said if you are going to add a secondary suite, you are not allowed to alter a main wall or roof that faces a street. So how do you understand the zoning bylaw, and how does your design overcome the issues that you have created by adding these changes?
Sure. So one, I mean, the addition of a secondary suite is triggered by the fact that it was legally still existing as the rooming house. Had the previous owner done that conversion legally and we were going from 3 units to 3 units, that wouldn't have been triggered. In terms of the design, I think if you refer back to the application and the 3D rendering we provided, we've essentially tried to keep the street-facing wall virtually untouched, and we're maintaining the existing A-frame of the peak, and that's why the massing of the 3rd floor set back a couple feet and sort of behind a pitched roof that matches the style of the existing, again, to try and, you know, still increase the density, but actually minimize that intervention to the street-facing facade. And so I would submit that a lot of thought has been put around that, and we've tried to respect the character of the home as much as possible with our design.
Okay. I'm just looking at the drawings again. So do you mind going to page A200? I believe this is the front facade, right?
Correct.
So you're changing windows, doors. You're not really building it out. You're not adding any entrances.
Correct, and we're not actually changing the windows. Like the 3rd floor window is existing, both the bay windows are existing. So the 2nd floor one where there's the walk out to the balcony, that there may be a little bit of higher glazing, but beyond that, all the other windows are existing and remain as is today.
Okay. And the entrance to the other units, just guide me through one more time. It's on the plan, I assume it's on the ground, 1st floor plan A102, right?
Correct.
So one is on the side, one is at the back.
They're actually on, so the ground floor is coming through a common entrance, and then there is the side entrance for the basement units.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Valentini.
You mentioned a previous owner had converted it from the rooming house. So what was it converted into? Is it 3 units right now, or what is it now?
Correct. So they converted from a rooming house to a 3-unit dwelling. And so the proposal is again for 3 units, but it's a much more generous owner suite. I mean, right now it's all rental, so it's to create a larger owner suite for Monica, Ivan, and their growing family is sort of the purpose behind the application.
Further questions? In that case, let's take the application into committee for whatever discussion may be appropriate and for a motion. Anyone wish to make any comment?
I'll start first. I'm satisfied with the proposal. I think those numbers, item number 2 and 3, are extremely minor. Number 1 was a little bit concerned, but I think it is appropriate after the explanation and understanding of the design, so I would be happy to support the application.
Do you want to make a motion?
Anyone want to make a comment, or if not, then I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'm sorry,
Just to add a comment that I agree with Mr. Chang, and I see this as an improvement over the existing situation.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Cheng, if you want to make a motion, carry on.
Yes, I'll make a motion to support the application as is. I don't see any I don't think there's any condition to add on. Yes. So yes, that will be my motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? It is seconded by Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried by a unanimous vote, and the application is approved. Thank you. Panel moves on to number 35. Number 7, Young Street. Here we have before us draft plan of survey, covering letter from the applicant, presentation material from the applicant, an LPAT order, presentation material by the agent received December 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 previous Committee of Adjustment decisions and consents. There is commenting correspondence from Community Planning, Development Engineering, Engineering and Construction, and a staff report from Community Planning dated 9 November. So, let's have the agent join us, please.
Thank you, sir. For the record, my name is Adrian Frank, and my firm Divine Park is counsel for the owner. We are the applicant.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Panel members, any questions for the applicant?
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Byatt?
Just a quick question. I'm trying to locate number 7 Young. Not quite sure where it's located. Is this south of the Gardner?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. South of Lakeshore Boulevard to the immediate east of Young Street, and sandwiched in between Young and Freeland Street, north of Queens Quay.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, if there are no further questions, let's move to a motion. Mr. Reed.
Thanks. I just wanted to confirm with the applicant that they had seen community planning's comment and recommending a condition, and they're fine with that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we have seen the planning staff report, and we are comfortable with the proposed condition. To the extent that there are any questions about the substantive aspects and identified by planning, we have prepared presentation materials, but recognizing it's been a long afternoon, I won't subject you to those unless necessary.
Yeah, well, that's fine, thanks.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I will look to panel for a motion, please. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm happy to put forward a motion to approve. These are just consents and easements to enable the continued redevelopment of this large site, subject to the condition in the November 9th planning report.
There we are. Thank you very much. Second to that? It is seconded. Ms. Valentini. It is moved and seconded to approve, subject to the staff report from planning. All those in favor, show of hands. And that motion is carried unanimously. The application is so approved. Thank you. Which brings the panel to number 36.
I've declared an interest on this one, Mr. Chair, so I'll step away from the meeting for now.
Thank you very much. Okay, on number 36. Before us are draft plan of survey, revised draft plan of survey December 1. Submitted materials, there's a map excerpt of the waterfront secondary plan, rendering of Parliament slip, sketches related to the proposed severance, legal descriptions of lands owned by the Ports Toronto, covering letter from Cynthia McDougall, solicitor, covering letter from Jacqueline Daly, a planner, McCarthy Tetro, cover letter from Meg Davis, Waterfront Toronto, presentation materials from the agent December 1. There's a commenting report from City Planning, Waterfront Secretariat, staff reports from Engineering and Construction, TRCA, and Community Planning. And on this application, we do have a staff report which recommends approval. So panel, let's have the agent join us now, please. State your name.
Cynthia McDougall.
Good evening.
Good
Okay.
evening. My name is Cynthia McDougall. I'm with McCarthy Tetro. I'm the solicitor representing Waterfront Toronto.
Very good.
Before I start my presentation, I'd like to commend this panel for its stamina.
Oh.
Because I have to tell you, I'm tired and I haven't been evaluating applications. So if there was one graphic I could draw your attention to, it's page 7 of our presentation material. And that's that presentation material that was submitted I think in December 1st, where it shows the Parliament Street slip. And effectively,
Okay,
this is...
Cynthia,
Yeah.
pardon me for interrupting you. Just let me check with my panel member colleagues, because I want to first of all ask them if they require a presentation, and number 2, I want to see if they have any direct questions for you. So that'll help us move ahead. Panel members, would we like a presentation here, or do you have questions for? No, so we don't actually require a presentation, and we do have a question from Mr. Byatt directly to you.
Sorry, no, Mr. Chair, I was just going to ask for a very brief presentation. I'm just curious as to the proposed development of this, the Parliament slip area.
Well,
it looks quite intriguing.
Okay, Cynthia, give us the highlights, please.
Absolutely. I will do that, and I'm only going to refer to that page. So effectively, what we're doing is in the blue, creating a lot, which is going to be transferred from Ports Toronto to Waterfront Toronto. That's the blue, and the red are easements. And what you're seeing on this picture is a concept plan, which is going to, in fact, be implemented through further public engagement next year, as well as the zoning process. So all that good regular stuff's gonna happen, but this is a wonderful opportunity to provide for the lands to go into waterfront Toronto and meet a number of public objectives, including the realignment of Queens Quay and the introduction of the LRT and the realignment of Parliament. So all of those things are hinged on, in fact, acquiring this land. And I would note, there's a number of comments, but there's no opposition, there's support for the application, and there's been extensive consultation with the neighbors, including RCYC, and you'll note that there's a letter of non-objection. So I was thinking about, we've got the planning department on side and Jane Pepino. So with that, you can see that there'll be sorts of public animation that Waterfront Toronto is planning for that slip, which will include public docking and events and space for the public to enjoy. So that's my short presentation. It meets the criteria of planning act. I hope I summarized it quickly enough.
That's very good, thank you. We appreciate it, and that's exactly what we needed, by the way, because that does make it all make sense. Panel members, any further questions for the applicant or the agent?
I can make a motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Cheng, and make a motion.
Yes, so I think this is a necessary step to unlock the land and continue with the development of the strip. So I'm fully supporting this application after reviewing the documents. So I don't think there's any condition to be applied. Someone to support my motion.
I see Mr. Reed.
Just a friendly amendment. There was a development engineering condition, I think, from November 8th. It's a minor technical, it's a technical request.
Right. F2, which will be
It's just about resubmitting plans to show different.
Okay, we should include that, so.
Right. So a condition following the engineering staff report to submit a revised draft reference plan of survey to chief engineer and executive director.
Very good.
Follow with the document.
Very good, okay.
So that,
and I see Mr. Reed, I think he's seconding that motion. Yes, so moved and seconded to approve the application with that condition. And all those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried by a unanimous vote. The application is so approved. Thank you very much. And Ms. Valentini can return now, and we'll move on to number 37. And moving on to 37, we actually move into the next segment of, the next and final segment on today's agenda of applications. Number 37 is 23 Lewis Street. 23 Lewis brings before us the following materials. Minutes from the February 17 public hearing, Applicant Materials, an arborist report, presentation materials from the applicant, as of right comparison from Magnus Clark, copies of correspondence between Shannon and Chad Gemmell and Kathy Daly, a map of the neighborhood consultation. There's a staff report from Urban Forestry, and there is a variety of correspondence. In support, 17 Lewis, 26, 23. Also from 40 Salter Street, 73 to 81 Salter, 45 to 61 Salter. From 59 Lewis and from 41A Salter. And a letter providing no address from Peter Abradovich. 5 form letters in support from occupants of addresses on Lewis, 10, 30, 61, and 38 and 46 Salter. There's a letter of concern from 19 Lewis. In opposition, the following. Correspondence from 48, 41, 31, and 72 Lewis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we also received a very late memo from 42 Lewis in opposition as well.
Okay, and from 42 Lewis, late submission in opposition. Thank you. Okay. So at this stage, we can invite the agent to join us, please.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We do hear you.
Yes, my name is Magnus Clark. I'm the agent and the architect for this particular proposal. Thank you, members, for your endurance today. I joined you for item number 4 this morning. It's been a long day.
It is. The members train for this by doing it every couple of weeks.
Exception. Presenter, if I may ask you to pull up the December 1st submitted presentation materials. That's what we'll be looking at.
Mr. Clark, let me ask you to hang on for one moment. Just stand by for 1 second while I check with the moderator. Moderator, do we have someone in opposition standing by?
We do have one speaker in opposition. The other speaker chose to join and then leave.
Okay. So very good, Mr. Clark. You have, please proceed with your presentation. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you kindly. The proposal here today is for a fourplex on a lot in South Riverdale in addition to a laneway suite. The proposed uses are entirely allowable within the current zoning bylaws. We did actually have this up for consideration in February, but we went for a deferral so we could go back for more extensive negotiations with Forestry and with community planning and with the neighbors, and we've done a fair bit of work since then to that extent. So on the left there, you'll see a rendering of what it might look like from Lewis Street, and on the right is an illustration of the laneway suite from the laneway. May we go to page 2, please? Here we see the site in context. There's fairly intensive development. There's a laneway down the right side, which just touches our lot and touches our laneway suite. And then Lewis Avenue is on the left side. As you can see, all the homes are fairly closely packed in there. I will note that currently today there is 2 large trees on the site. We are proposing removing one of them. We've worked very hard to preserve the second one. In respect of that, that's on the laneway suite. It's adjacent to that. We've redesigned the laneway suite so it will be on helical piles, and we've done this in collaboration with Forestry to ensure that we don't harm that tree. Had we gone for an as-of-right single-family dwelling for the main home, as of right, we would have been able to remove the tree that was there. We have arrived at an agreement with Forestry that they can support the application in its current form. Perhaps we can move down to the next sheet. We have a number of variances. I should note we would wish to drop items number 9 and 10, if we may, to simplify this application. They're not material, but everything is important, so there you go. So I'm going to go through and address the various variances we're looking for here quickly, because there's a number of them. The max permitted depth of the laneway suite is 10 meters. We're looking at 12 meters. In part, that's so that we could reconfigure the laneway suite around that tree that I just spoke of. The exterior stairs too close to the front lot line. We were attempting to minimize the impact on the soft landscaping in the front yard. The maxed allowable height is 12 meters, and we show 13.1 meters, which you can see here on this front elevation. The part of the building that is above the currently allowed height is the stair tower that goes up to a rooftop amenity space. That's the only portion that exceeds the allowable height, and this is applicable for items 3 and 11. In respect of the rooftop amenity space, we've worked with community planning to mitigate any potential overlook, and we've committed to a reduced area for that amenity space to reduce overlook, and also to having a shrubbery screen around it to ensure the privacy of the adjacent neighbors. The max height of the front wall, we are over what is currently allowed due to the building topology that we've gone with. With this more modern boxy building, our main front walls are higher. As a result, what we've tried to do in working with community planning is we've set back, perhaps we can go back to the first page, it illustrates it well. We've set back the third floor at the front there, so we get some small angular plane effect and it's less imposing on the streetscape. Similarly, item 5 is a max height rear main wall minor variance we're looking for, and on the rear wall there, what we've proposed is a mansard roof with the same intent that we can reduce the volume and how imposing it might be considered to be. Max depth for the building, yes, we're looking for something slightly larger. I think we're 17% over, and we're simply trying to come up with sensible interior layouts. Our overarching philosophy with this entire project is that this is precisely the kind of gentle density that the official plan is now looking for. We're trying to improve the intensity of the site without going overboard on the size and scope of the buildings that we're proposing. FSI, we're proposing 1% over what's allowed. And just a few moments ago, you approved something just up the street for about 5% over. The front yard setback we arrived at through an averaging of the buildings on either side. The front porch, the enclosed front porch to the north or the left of the image there, and the main wall of the house to the right. Slightly different interpretation, but again, we went back and forth with community planning many times to arrive at an agreeable place here. As I mentioned, items 9 and 10 we're proposing removing, and item 11 is again the building height as is referred to in building number 3, or item number 3. Broadly speaking, I think this is the right kind of intensification for this site. The intent is that the owner will live in the laneway suite, and then the 4 suites in the fourplex would become rentals. I think I'm probably getting short on time, so I'll leave it at that.
Your time is up. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So we'll go now to the speaker registered and ask them to join us, please.
Ruby, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Hi, for the record, my name is Ruby Calleray, and I'm resident at 42 Lewis Street.
Good afternoon.
Mindful of the time. Thank you.
Good evening, Ruby.
I'll keep my points. Okay, thank you. I'll keep my points pretty brief and to the point. The concern that myself and other neighbors have around this is that this is a single-family area. The proposed fourplex and laneway, which is a duplex, it's not a single-family owned or livable laneway, it will be a duplex. It's a direct contrast to the current nature of the street. The street is old worker cottages. This design doesn't fit in the aesthetics of that. More than that, I want to correct one of the things in terms of the support that's been received. Some of those support, particularly the ones on Lewis Street, on the southern side of the street, are actually from a developer who owns multiple properties on Lewis. That same developer, within 10 meters away from this property, will be building or is proposing to build over 300 units. So, the applicants, trying to stay within, we're part of the solution to housing supply, to me doesn't make any sense unless housing supply is akin to housing affordability and they intend to manage rent control and make sure this is an affordable project for anybody to live in. The fourplex is over and above what is on the street. I'm emphasizing single family homes. I believe there is a duplex and a triplex, both of which have been legalized, but a fourplex, in my view, is overreach. On the west side of the property is where parking is not available to residents on their property and or in a laneway. This property is on the east side, and without proper parking for all of the 6 units, that means they go onto the street. The street is currently congested. As a west side living resident, the parking study isn't reflective of the day-to-day reality of what's happening on that street. Lewis Street also is an excessively main traffic street to get into the neighborhood, into Queen, and is used as a way to get into the neighborhood. It's constantly congested. Parking hasn't been thought through or considered on this property. The other concern is around, you know, the impact on the neighbors. Construction is a big deterrent. I moved here 3 years ago, not to live in a construction site to the south of me, to the north of me, and now, you know, coming onto the west of me. That's exactly what this is happening. Nobody's taking into account on all of these developments and all of these applications that are coming in, the impact on the residents in terms of rodent. No abatement is being discussed, no methodology within the planning in terms of construction and managing the impact of rodents on residents who live in there, and it directly affects our safety, our welfare, and the peace to the residents. You can't have kids playing in the backyards because of the construction that's going to be happening and has been happening, and this is just another example that's contributing to it. I think those are my key points. I don't think I have anything other further to say on this.
Thank you very much. Any questions, panel? No. Okay, then we'll return to the agent, who'll have an opportunity to rebut. Agent?
Good afternoon. Thank you. In respect to the characterization of the laneway suite as a duplex, that's simply not true. It's a single-family dwelling as a laneway suite. It's very clear in the plans. With respect to the fourplex, as I mentioned, it's an allowed use under the current zoning bylaws, as is the laneway suite. In respect of parking, you'll note that we're not looking for any relief for parking. We're in compliance with the current proposal as it stands. We understand there's some challenges in the area for parking in that regard. Some quick research indicates we have a walkability score of 93. We have a transit score of 100, and we have a cycling score of 100. There's masses of alternative transportation opportunities in this area that, in part, this development is designed to take advantage of. In respect of the approach to construction, we're very seriously investigating modular panelization. So to the greatest extent possible, we can truck in and crane into place large pieces of the constructed elements to speed up the entire construction process and create less impact on the neighborhood, just so we can bring it to fruition more quickly and with less pain and suffering. We believe overall these, may I ask the presenter, actually, can you pull up the document that was submitted on December 2nd, the comparison? While that's happening, broadly speaking, we believe the variances that we've asked for are truly minor in nature. So what we've prepared here is a set of drawings, both some elevations from the south side that's at the top, and then some site plan at the bottom, and that indicates what an as-of-right building would be, and then what we're actually proposing in the black outlines on the outside. And you can see that, in fact, it's not a great deviation from what's allowed as of right. So just about everything we've got going on here is in compliance with the allowed uses from the zoning bylaw, and similarly, this is in line with the intent and purposes of the zoning bylaw, and likewise, this supports the general intent and purposes of the official plan.
Thank you very much. Questions, panel? Ms. Valentini, go ahead.
I'm curious to know, I mean, you are asking for what on paper looks like a large height variance, but how is this going to fit? I did visit the site, and I noticed there are other three-story houses, and in particular, there's a set of, I think they're townhouses across the street, or
That's
maybe
right.
they're a set of semis. I'm not. Anyway, how would the height compare to those? What you're proposing?
As far as I can tell, we've done some rudimentary measurements on the buildings across the street, the townhomes to which you referred. They come very close to the allowable height, which was the 12 meters, I believe. Similarly, just 2 or 3 doors north of this site is a 3-story building, which again comes quite close to this. And I should also note that in respect of the site plan, there's a number of existing laneway structures there, whether they're legal non-conforming or what their status is, I'm not sure, but 2 doors to the north, there's literally a 3-story structure on that laneway with a peak roof, which is quite substantial. I was gobsmacked when I first saw it, quite honestly. So you can see that in the top right of the site plan there. So broadly speaking, I really truly do believe this is going to fit in with the typology of what's evolving in this area, and it's in keeping with the number of variants that have been supported in the area as well, I think.
Further questions? Mr. Byatt?
I wonder if you could comment on I realize your diagram showed the as of right and what you're asking for. What's the impact on soft landscaping on that property?
Compared to where we are today, we are reducing the soft landscaping, but we are in compliance with the bylaws, and we've worked hard with community planning to achieve that. So really, we've got the path down the north side, the hard path down the north side of the building, but there'll be soft landscaping in the rear between the laneway suite and the main building. And similarly, save for the stairs and a small portion of path, just about everything in the front yard is soft landscaping. There's, on the city property, there's a fairly substantial cedar tree there already. That, while even Forestry agrees it's not the greatest tree in the world, we've all agreed that it needs to stay, and it'll be supported by the soft landscaping around.
Thank you.
And a question for you from me. I'm chair here. Just to confirm with you, the changes to the variances as we have them are that numbers 9 and 10 are deleted. Are there any other changes to any of the remaining 9 variances?
No, sir, you have it correct. Just removal of 9 and 10.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay then, if there are no further questions for the applicant, let's take this into committee for whatever discussion and move into a motion. Anybody have any thoughts on this one? Ms. Valentini, go ahead.
Just some thoughts, maybe to start out to see, if anybody else has any follow-up thoughts. But I initially, when I looked at this one, I mean, this one, I guess I grappled with, given the current, structures on either side. But I did visit the site, and I do feel that, and I'm convinced by the agent's arguments that this will fit in with the streetscape, even though there is a height variance, and I did note when he pointed out it's just the rooftop access that's over. So there are the townhomes across the street that are of similar height, and another structure a few doors down, and interestingly enough, the laneway structure you pointed out. I think this will be, in terms of adding additional units, this is a sort of a gentle intensification to introduce these units. And it was interesting to note that there is not a parking variance in this case. Often you see that, and that ends up being a bone of contention with many neighbors, and something to think about in terms of, as well, in terms of variances, but there's not one here. And so I'm in support of the application in general. I don't know if there's any other comments, but I'll be supporting the application.
Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo some of Lisa's comments. I think this is a really good project, and I think there's been a lot of effort that's gone into its design to make not just a good overall project, but nice units inside of it as well. I think it's the kind of thing we need to see more of, and this does it in a very sensitive way, I think. And I think it's important to note too, I know one of the objectors speaking is talking about it being a single family neighborhood, but this is allowed as a use, a fourplex is allowed, and I think people have to realize that families come in different sizes and live in different types of spaces. So I'll support it too.
Well, do you care to make a motion?
Sure. I move to approve the application subject to Urban Forestry 2. Is that the only one that's it?
Jump in. I did notice that planning had conditions on the previous, when it was before us previously. Now I don't know if, I know the plans have changed, but the conditions related to tying it to plans for the height, and I think the agent had talked about the planter boxes on the rooftop terrace. I noticed that's one of the conditions. I don't know if we want to include those, or
I think it would make sense because of the massing of this to tie it to plans.
Good idea. That motion needs a second. Is there a second to that motion?
Sorry, through you, Mr.
Okay,
is that something you're interested in doing, or do you
Sorry,
think it's helpful?
No,
yeah, I do think so. I think that's important to add. So
Okay.
yeah, Urban Forestry 2 plus I guess instead of saying planning conditions, because that's old news, let's say tie it to plans. I think tying it to plans is enough.
Okay, I'll second that then.
Thank you. Just hold there, Deputy Secretary. Yes.
I just want to bring to your attention from the materials from previous hearing, engineering and construction services dated December the 15th, 2020. There were also conditions for the laneway house suite.
Pardon me, yeah, the kind of generic laneway suite comments from development engineering. I'll have those two. Pardon me.
Okay, very good. They become part of the motion also. And we have the 2 variances that are deleted. Okay. It is moved and seconded to so approve. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And that's a unanimous vote to carry the motion and approve the application. Now, at this point, we have decided on 37 of 41 applications, but we have some applications coming up that I can see will involve quite a number of speakers and so on. So it is 3 hours since our last break. At this stage, we will take a recess of 10 minutes, and we'll recommence at 7:30. Thank you.
Hi, for anyone watching on YouTube, I'm going to end this stream and then I'll start another one once we come back from the recess in 10 minutes.